everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beautiful and Bothered with me, your host, Johnny Ross. We have an incredible show for you today. I have such a moving conversation with Rebecca Rogers later on, talking all about how to have the courage to set boundaries in difficult situations to find peace. And I want to wish you a very happy January almost being over. We did it, guys. It is the hardest month to get through, in my opinion. January always feels a little depressing. It lasts forever. It's the post-holiday season, and the turn of a new year has a tendency to wrap its cold, bony claws of existentialism around our necks, causing many of us to reevaluate our identities, who we've been and what we've accomplished in the past year, and who we want to be going forward. So while we're on the subject, I say screw that fat, judgmental baby new year, and let's warm our bones with some hot topics. Today I want to talk about identity. As I said, the new year can cause a lot of people to question who they are and where they want to go. And if you're like me, your inner reflections can be overpowered by the infinite number of self-proclaimed philosophers on social media telling you you need to make a New Year's resolution or that making one is a surefire way to fail. Well, I want to tell you to screw those people and screw their self-indulgent opinions. Whether you made a New Year's resolution or they aren't for you, the only thing that matters is wanting to grow, wanting to evolve, wanting to heal. And no matter where you are on this journey, I want to remind you that the new year has barely begun. You aren't a failure. Your dreams are not hopeless. You are enough. I've spent a lot of my life alone, especially as a kid, hoping the world would reveal where I belonged because I didn't feel it anywhere. Too gay to be invited to hang out with the boys, and too much of a boy to be invited to hang out with the girls. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized I was viewing my entire existence from the vantage point of how other people perceived me. Don't let yourself be the extra in everyone else's movie. The relationship that matters most is the one you have with yourself, how you view yourself, completely absolving society's opinions and expectations. If there's something we want to achieve in our lives, no matter what it is, learning to do makeup, getting in better shape, healing relationships with people in our lives, I always ask myself the question, what is holding me back? Too many of us feel we can't begin to take a single step towards our goals until we're confident in feeling qualified to do so. We don't need the confidence to feel qualified. We simply have to have the confidence to begin. You're gonna fumble, you're gonna make mistakes, it's not gonna be perfect, but you're learning. For years, I was so afraid to make a single move, believing it was failure I was fearing. And if you feel this way, take a moment to reflect and ask yourself this one question I ask myself anytime these feelings return. Do I truly fear failure? Or do I feel better and more comfortable ruminating in my feelings of worthlessness than I do having what I want? When we're broken and want to be fixed, the attention and validation we get for being broken is more addicting and easier than seeing ourselves as whole. And that addiction will constantly repeat these patterns. And stopping this pattern is not going to come from anything someone else says, from me, or from any tool given to you outside yourself. It comes from seeing yourself and surrounding yourself with people that see you as whole, even though you may have forgotten that. So this new year, whether you made a resolution or not, let's make a promise to each other that we will not allow our mood to dictate our actions. You are so worthy of having whatever you want in this life. So together, let's take that very first step towards whatever it is you want, whatever goal, whatever you want to achieve. And I promise you this, that single solitary action will have profoundly greater effects on your mood. Life can be brutal, but I want to tell you, you are never alone, you are never unloved, and you are never unworthy. To everybody listening, this is going to be a very happy new year. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. I am so excited for my guest today. She is one of the sweetest and nicest people I have ever met. You may know her as Mrs. Rogers or R. Rogers World on social media, where she's amassed a following of over 2.8 million on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and nearly 1.8 million followers on YouTube. Whether she is inviting us into her life, sharing the trials and tribulations of what it's like to be a teacher, or giving exquisite advice, she is full of heart and laugh. She is the one and only Rebecca Rogers. How you doing?
So sweet. That was the nicest thing I've ever heard someone say about me. That was so kind.
Oh my God, of course.
I just love you so much.
You are. So we have to tell people how you and I met, because to me, it's one of the funniest stories. So take it away.
So YouTube was putting on this beauty fest thing, and eventually they ended up extending the invite to any YouTube Shorts creator in their little Shorts cohort. But at the time, it was just like, hey, you get an invite and you get an invite. And they invited me, and I was like, why are you inviting me? I don't even know how to wing my eyeliner. Like, I still don't know how to wing my eyeliner. I don't know, like, I'm not gonna fit in. I purposed to go. I was so scared, so I just kind of made this little video about like, hey, is anyone going to this event? I really want a friend, and I'm so scared I'm gonna look like I don't belong there.
Yeah.
And everyone kept tagging Johnny in it, and so Johnny was like, oh, well, I don't think, like, I didn't get an invite yet, and I was like, well, I'm gonna see if I can talk to somebody, because I don't want to go alone, but regardless, let's be friends. And literally, the next week they invited him. I didn't even get a chance to talk to them yet. They just knew he was a superstar and were like, oh yes, we need Johnny. And so we made plans to meet up, but the moment we got together, like, our souls were like, yes.
Well, this is the funny thing, because that is so not like me. I'm the most introverted person you will ever meet. So I remember commenting, being like, well, if they invited me, I'd be friends with you. So they ended up inviting me, and I reached back out, and I was like, I'm going, let's whatever. So I got a hotel room, and you were going to meet me. So something happened with your plane. I think you got a little delayed.
I always get delayed flights. That's like my trademark. Like, Rebecca's on that plane, it can't go for like at least 6 hours.
We're going back to the terminal. You got in the day of Beauty Fest. I think you got to my hotel room maybe an hour before we had to leave. I was like half in makeup, just came right in the hotel room. But this is what obviously, like, honestly made me just connect with you and fall in love with you as quickly as I did, was you came in the hotel room and just were so like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. How are you? Let's talk about everything. Let's talk about the difference between like teacher TikTok and beauty TikTok. And you radiate this like extroverted kindness and ease that me being introverted, like if anyone ever told me like, oh yeah, some person you never met before is going to show up in your hotel room, like, and you have to go blah, 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 I would have been like, what? Like, and lo and behold, it's a testament to you that it was, we got along like a house on fire, and it was like the
I
most
felt like
fun
our
trip.
souls were like, I've known this person forever.
100%.
And I've been so obsessed with you. Like, literally, anytime, even my husband knows, like, anytime he scrolls, he's like, oh my God, what are Johnny's TikToks? I'm like, well, we have to watch the whole thing for the algorithm. Twice.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Again, yes, that is your, just to me, so evident, that quality that you radiate, that like positivity. But I want to talk specifically about, you share so much of your life as a teacher, what your experience as a teacher, and then pseudo infusing that into what you do now on social media. But teaching, to any human, I think, with a brain, people realize and should know, teaching is one of the most difficult, underrated, underpaid professions ever. What was your like calling to get into teaching?
It's so funny because everyone always expects this really deep story.
Yeah. And
I don't know why, but for some reason I have a vivid memory of sitting in my 5th grade math class, which I don't even math. I don't even like numbers. I hate math so much. I mean, I've had very nice math teachers.
Yeah.
But I've never been good at math. I was just sitting in my 5th grade math class and was like, yep, this is it.
Really?
This is going to be my future. And I didn't know what I wanted to teach. I didn't know what age group. I had no idea. I just knew I wanted to teach. I don't know why. And then in high school, I had the craziest A-push teacher that I think has ever existed.
Now, describe what A-push is for us people
AP US history.
I was never in an AP class, so that's why I asked.
I always liked history. I like the stories.
I love history.
You know, you can relate it to everything that we do today. I love history. I could nerd out about that. I'm not even going to let my ADHD take over there because I will ramble. But my A-push teacher was psychotic in the best way. You either really loved him or you really hated him, and I loved him. He was so inspiring to me. And that's how I knew social studies, high school social studies,
Wow.
100%.
But that's so interesting because I think a lot of people maybe, like you were saying, they expect this like, oh, I had this amazing teacher that taught this one thing and I love the subject and that also made me want to teach. But I think it coincides with what I was saying about your confidence. And I think you're somebody that is so organically comfortable in a space where you are presenting or you're connecting with people, that extrovertedness. Where do you get that confidence from? Or where did you get that confidence from, do you think?
I really don't know. I think it took me a long time when I was younger to realize that not everybody felt that way.
Yes.
Because it's even a joke in my friend groups at this point that like I'm hi, my name's Rebecca, we're friends now. And that is me. And I can't remember a time where that wasn't the case. I think I've just always loved people and I've always loved kindness. And, you know, growing up, I always say like, oh, I was kind of sheltered growing up. Like my mom really wanted me to see the world in rose-colored glasses kind of thing. Like she was a very we lived in the Cary bubble. Anyone from North Carolina knows that Cary is consistently ranked as the safest place one of the safest places to live in the country. So that's where I grew up. In a very safe, and so I genuinely grew up thinking like the world is such a nice and happy place and it's just all sunshine and roses. So I think that really shaped a lot of my personality of genuinely thinking like the world is so great all the time. And it really was once I got to an age where I realized, oh, it's not.
Yes.
There are some very unsafe and not okay things in the world. And I think that was really hard for me to learn and understand, but I don't think it changed who I was as a person, if that makes sense.
Oh, completely. And that's what I'm noticing, I think. And I think there's such value in understanding, because a lot of people who do have that kind of upbringing, I think, so yes, we love that upbringing was maybe what instilled that confidence, but a lot of people then maybe once the rose-colored glasses are taken off, they can kind of maybe maintain the confidence, but in a way where they fight what the world actually is like, or they say, wait, this isn't how I was raised, this is how it should be. How are you able to transition that confidence, but still kind of surrender your own ego and say, okay, wait, okay, the world isn't how I thought it was. Let me learn, let me figure out what it's like and keep the best parts of that upbringing.
The number one thing that I remember that my dad always told us growing up, and he still says it all the time, and he says it so much that like we can time it and we'll just say it with him. You know, like dads all have that one thing. My dad was always, there's reasons and there's results.
Wow.
So you might have your reasons, but like the results are really what matter.
I love that.
And that kind of mentality has been instilled in me since I can remember. That's like the number one thing that I would take away from my dad in childhood.
Yeah.
And so I guess that played a large part in like, you know, I'm who I am and the world is the way that it is. And just because I wasn't aware doesn't change anything. Those are just reasons.
Love that.
But I can still go on and not let it change me and still enjoy life. Like I genuinely enjoy life. I enjoy the people around me. You know, my people are very important to me. You know, when I'm in my closest circle, you know, one of my best friends of 22 years or one of my other best friends of 15 years, like people in our circle are very important to us. And I just kind of came to the conclusion that, you know, I had a good life. The world has always been this way, even if I did or didn't know it. Why should I do anything different if I'm genuinely enjoying being here?
Yeah. Well, my God, there are reasons and there are results. And even the philosophy behind that. Obviously, to fix a problem or understand a situation, you have to rationalize it out. You have to understand the reasons, and you need to say,
Yes.
okay, this is the situation. But reasoning with something only goes so far. That's step one. And step two is taking action. And I think because of social media, we are having almost a epidemic of people that are do nothing but point out the reasons, do nothing but point out and complain and say, I don't like this and I don't like that. But what are you doing to take it to that next step of the result? And that brings me to, I think you and I are very similar in the sense that you make an amazing series on social media called I Don't Get Paid Enough. And a lot of it is comedy for the sake of comedy, but a lot of it points out interactions between you and a student or you and parents. And it's similar to my philosophy when I created the Working at Sephora series. I think we both use comedy to enlighten and enhance the audience's understanding of a situation. And no one is ever the butt of the joke. No one is ever being made fun of. No one is the villain. No one is the hero. But it is just to hold up a mirror in a satirical way and make people understand that and say, okay, here's the exchange that's happening. For some reason, which I'm comedically explaining, this is ridiculous. So now when you go out into the world, think about it a little bit and understand that interaction. And I know I've gotten both sides of the coin. That can be a scary thing because in a way you're delivering a spoonful of, sugar, medicine with the sugar. What is some of the maybe pushback or flip side positivity you've received from that series?
Yeah, I've definitely experienced both sides of the coin. Like it really fills my heart with so much joy when I see messages from teachers who are like, I feel so seen by your content, how these things happen to me all the time. And it's just nice knowing that someone sees me and sees that struggle. And that is really all I can hope for. And then another just magical moment is when I see comments or messages that are like, wow, I've never appreciated teachers as much as I do when I really see the things that they dealt with.
Yeah.
We had very either not the best teachers growing up, and so I had a particular view of them, or we had very uneventful school years, so like I never gave it a second thought. But now seeing what other teachers really sometimes go through, wow.
Yeah.
And getting those kinds of messages is awesome. But then of course you get the, what are you doing playing on your phone? Get back to work. Well, they're at lunch, sir. Like, like, what do you want me to do? Or it's 6 o'clock at night. What do you want me to do? Or, there's so much misinformation around teaching. Like, well, teachers are overpaid because they only work 10 months out of the year. Well, they only get paid for 10 months of the year. Teachers are 10-month employees. And then there's, of course, the kids that are like, well, I know my parents get a paycheck over summer. And it's like, yes, you do have the option of spreading that 10-month check out, but that doesn't mean more money. And so I think there's a lot of misinformation about teaching that goes into people that are like, oh, this is stupid. Teachers get paid too much. And
those are fighting words.
Something else that I always try to push on my social media, especially on my long content, is, the first step to accepting each other is understanding each other. Because you're never going to accept when you don't understand.
Say that one more time.
The first step to accepting each other is understanding each other.
You are full of, look at this. This is a spiritual experience. And I love so much, I forget the creator's name. I'll insert it. They are a non-binary creator and getting interviewed and maybe having conversations about pronouns, etc. And the point of it being is, why do I have to do this? Or I don't understand it. And they say, and it's one of my favorite things, it's not about understanding, it's about compassion. It doesn't need to make sense to you.
That.
It needs it's about, if someone wants to identify a certain way or be seen a certain way, have compassion for the person. It doesn't, your understanding of it, if it has nothing to do with you, is irrelevant. And I think that is very much along the exact same lines. You also recently posted a short video about a student that you were worried about when you were teaching them, and you were maybe feared for them on a regular basis, and
already crying.
And they had reached out to you just kind of checking in. And I want to ask, because I think this is helpful for a lot of people that work in fields maybe that this is part of the curriculum, if you will, pun intended. Because nowadays, again, going to the underpaid aspect, I think a lot of people really expect their teachers to be their kids' parents and parent their children and help them with these things. And how do you navigate caring for students that deal with difficulty like this, but not adopting too much of the emotions and absorbing that, exuding the empathy without getting too attached that it becomes a detriment for maybe your own mental health or for the other students or that student?
I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that there's not really a way to not get too attached. Like, if you care, you care. And if you don't, you don't. And I would stay up at night worrying about some of my kids.
Yeah.
Unless you work in a field with young kids, whether it be teaching or counselors or social work, you really don't know some of the horrors. Like, even just in my 4 years, the things that I've seen just shatter my heart. And that particular student was just one example of some of the kids that I just stayed at night terrified over, just because the world can be so cruel.
Yeah.
And for me, it did take over a lot of my mental space and a lot of my emotional well-being. But for me, it was also like, okay, but if I don't worry about them, who will? And oh wow, I can feel it in my mind. But for me, it was more important to have, I'm an adult, I'm in a good place in my life. I have a home, I have a husband, I have a family. I can afford a little bit of my space. I'm trying to think of, I don't even know how to say it.
To be occupied by
them in what they need and what they might need me to be. I mean, even just the same year, different class, different kid, I was on a first name basis with the counselor at that school by month 2, and I was brand new at that school.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I went every day of, what are the options? Here's a new update I got about their home situation. What can we do? Can we do anything yet? What actions can we take? What do we need to be able to take actions? And that's another thing is I've seen so many, I've had a few stories about calling CPS in my skits. And I've seen some very interesting comments about, how dare you take these kids away, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think people realize how severe things need to be for CPS to actually do something.
And for people that don't know, CPS is
Child Protective Services.
Okay. Yes.
I had numerous kids who were threatened physically. One who was threatened physically by a stepfather. And nope, still not enough. Can't do anything.
How could you not, when you're that only kid's respite? People always ask me, joking around, like, are you going to have children? I don't want children. People's response to that is always, oh, you would be such a great parent. I know I would. 70% of how your child is raised is by the world. It's not by you. I wish parents understood, or people understood, that how you kind of educate your child on how to treat others when they're in that space of school, how they treat their friends and even the kid they don't talk to, the nerdy kid, the gay kid, etc. That is maybe not your kid's sense of community because they're going home to a healthy environment, but other kids aren't. And this brings up another question I wanted to ask you. What is a subject or a topic that is not taught in schools that you think should be?
I know that a lot of schools have taken out home ec. I think having more tangible life skill classes is important. I also think having classes about trade work is so important.
Yes.
Because I hate the idea that in order to be successful for anything that you have to go to college, you have to do whatever. I'm not doing anything I used my degree for.
God, preach. Tell me about it.
Right. Or my husband's friend opened up his own HVAC company. He's doing phenomenally. He's doing great. You don't have to go to college to be successful. There's so many other things that you can do and be so successful. My brother's girlfriend works at this charter school, and this has nothing to do with her. Like, this isn't her fault by any means.
Yeah.
But her school does this thing, and mind you, this is an inner city charter school in Charlotte. Each classroom basically gets a college as a mascot to promote these kids to go to all these colleges around the country. And I get the intention, and I know they're trying to promote, yeah, go to college and get attached to this college and learn about this college in elementary school. But I just think that's so harmful.
Yeah.
Like, read the room. A lot of these kids are worried about if they're gonna have enough food tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the first thing on their brain, you know? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like their basic needs are not being met, and you're shoving like college in their face. Do you know how many of their families probably think that that might not even be a possibility?
Yes.
To afford to send them off to college? Like, why are we not taking the time to, and like, hopefully they'll be able to change their stars. Like, hopefully, whether it be through scholarships or maybe their family gets a better break or whatever. I genuinely hope that for them. But why are we not teaching these kids at a lower level? Like, hey, going and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on school isn't the only option.
Yes.
There are other avenues that you can take. And that bothers me.
You hit the nail on the head, because I think, and me going back to college when I was 26, I think I had a different lens because I was a little older and I was seeing these like 18-year-olds in front of me just shopping on Amazon, the whole class. And it really like woke me up where I realized, you know, college has become a business more than anything else. And I truly wish that the early education was spent more on teaching kids how to be inquisitive, polite, kind, mental health, navigating, awareness, being rounded people that have an interest in what they want to do and are curious people. Like you're saying, the reasons and results. What was the quote?
Yep, there's reasons and results.
There's reasons and results. Be inquisitive about the reasons, but saying, okay, now what are we going to do about it? Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? But instead, we devoid them of the reasons and say, okay, this is the result you're working towards. College, college, college. That's the only outlet. You have kids that saying that to them so young, you're already instilling them with the insecurity that this is the only option you have. Yep. It is entwined with your self-worth. Everyone's talking about the schools they got in and high school, and if you don't want to go, or you're going to a trade school, you're the one sitting there as though you're the kid accepting a life of homelessness. Then we go to school, we get the degree, we find out 9 times out of 10 it's useless. And now everyone hops on social media and does nothing but point out the reasons everybody else is making mistakes. And this is the cycle. And going back to your social media, which, like we're saying, you are using to illuminate these things, what would you say is your intention when it comes to your social media, your message, if you will?
So I'm very proud of this, in that my why has stayed the same from the very beginning. I don't know, have I ever told you why I started social media?
No.
So I never intended this ever. During COVID lockdowns, I was just trying to find ways to bond with my students because they were really sad. And I've never been able to not bond with kids before. And it was like an identity crisis for me of like, what if I'm not the cool teacher anymore? Like, what if they don't like me? Like that, because the kids have always been my why. Like that was my favorite part of teaching, was teaching kids history.
Yes.
And so I tried talking to them about sports. I tried learning about different animes they were watching. Like, can you imagine me just sitting there researching animes to talk to high schoolers about?
Yeah.
I tried hard and nothing was working. And so TikTok was my third choice of, okay, let's see if they bite a little bit. And they hopped on, and they were, when I said, hey, what do you guys think about me starting a TikTok? You guys can pick the appropriate trends that I do. And they
that is so funny.
Ate that up so fast. And so like my why started out as being, I want to make people happy. I want to add a little bit of joy into the world. And I want people to feel seen. And originally, those people that I was thinking of were my kids. I had, like 105 of them at the time. I guess I've kind of, once I realized what my platform could do, I kind of added that last why of, first step to accepting each other is understanding each other. And so that's what I try to do, either through skits or through long videos on YouTube. Like, we can't make this stuff up. The first step to accepting each other is understanding each other. And if we can understand the hardships that we each go through, that might add a little layer of acceptance a little bit at a time. And I learned, especially teaching social studies, that when it's all just gloom and, oh, it's so terrible, like, a lot of people just kind of tune it out. And a lot of times that's just how people are programmed. Like, there's so much craziness in the world.
Yes.
I don't want to listen to more of that. Just one ear, in one ear, out the other. And so I learned that if people are genuinely enjoying what they're doing, that's kind of was my motto in class. If they're enjoying what we're doing, it's going to stick with them more. And so that's why I turned to comedy, because they're going to listen and they're going to pay attention, and it might stick with them a little bit more if they're having fun and enjoying.
Well, and I think a symptom of that is that almost the, in one ear, out the other, kind of, like we were saying before, epidemic that is happening is because I think people's communities have gotten too big. And especially for kids, I can't even imagine what it is like right now to be an adolescent, a teen, a kid with social media in that age. If we didn't get invited to a sleepover, we didn't know about it. We went home.
Where did I go?
Yeah, I went home, watched Hey Arnold, and called it a day. But now they have to go home, and they're seeing that they're not invited. They're seeing, and moreover, even when it comes to building self-esteem or navigating your career, if you want to be a singer or you want to be a makeup artist or whatever the case is, you're flooded by seeing the best of the best. And because back in the day, your community was 100 people. If you were the best singer out of 100 people, it gave you that spark of confidence to maybe go to the next level. But now I think so many people feel so defeated right from the gate because our communities are too big. The best thing that you're doing is building a community that was a symptom of everything that I didn't even realize was going to happen to me. Was you're creating a bubble for people. You're creating a community for them that your words and what you're saying are maybe making their world a little smaller, as it should be in that moment, to inspire them to do something they want to do. And I think you are somebody that I have to ask, because I know you've talked about burnout before, but being a teacher and doing what you're doing on social media, I know how difficult social media aspect is, especially when I was working on top of it. How do you balance creating content and maintaining that personal life and still finding the inspiration to put out such a meaningful message without losing your mind?
Yeah, so that is still a work in progress for me. My husband is so supportive. Like, I really don't know how I could do this without him. He has really been helping me find tools to add to my toolkit to help with that, because even just a few months ago, like, I went down this spiral of mental health issues, and I stopped working out, and I was sad, and did find out that a lot of that had to do with my birth control change. Like, that stuff's real. That stuff messes me so hard. But I didn't know that at the time. Even just looking back at some of those videos from that month, I was like, wow, I look miserable. It doesn't feel me. It doesn't feel genuine. And acknowledging that if I'm not okay, neither is my content, meaning neither is my job. I've always put everybody else first.
Yes.
Always. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm in the middle of a crisis. If one of my people calls me, like, I'm going to pick that up immediately. And the first thing I'm going to ask is, are you okay?
Yeah.
And I've really had to learn that sometimes I have to put me first.
You have to set boundaries.
Yes. And that has been really hard. My mom called me about some petty family squabble. Before, I just would have been like, oh yeah, let me take your pain and let me take whatever. The point that I really tried to get across to her, that I realized in that moment that I was able to really truly adopt, is, being comfortable and confident and content enough to not let the small things going on with someone else impact your day. And I said, Mom, like, you're too busy and too successful to let something like that ruin your day. Like, you don't have time for that.
I've gone through the exact same thing recently with my family. I stepped back and realized, okay, how much am I enabling their behavior by constantly being that
Yes.
person that they could go to and vent about things and say things that were bothering them. And you realize, yes, you can have an opinion on it, but is it worth sacrificing your own happiness for by not making myself as available? A, they would have to work it out themselves. And B, I would be in a better mental state to be a better brother, son, spouse, because I'm in a better state.
There was a weekend where I was having a rough weekend. You know, I had a family member that took their own life.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I had my husband was going through a lot, and I remember I had this friend that I met on social media who called me with one of their own crisis going on, and I remember saying this was the first times that I tried boundaries. I said, I'm really sorry. I can't talk to you about this right now. I have something going on. And they never forgave me for that.
Wow.
And it took me I couldn't understand why that made me such a bad friend, that I needed to take the time for my family. And I had to end up, saying, you know what? I have to wash my hands of this because I can't drop this. Like, I've dropped everything else in the past. And I had to go back and think, I have dropped everything else in the past for this person.
Yeah.
That became very normal and expected. And the one time I wasn't able to do that, I was just labeled a really bad friend.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to come to the conclusion that that was not a me problem. Because I really blamed myself for a long time. That's when once I came to the conclusion that that was not on me, that's when I was like, wow, these boundaries are very important.
Well, the biggest benefit of boundaries is really allowing you to learn what people's actual intentions are in their relationships with you.
Yes.
It really exposes. I love one of my best friends always used to say, when people show you who they are, believe them.
Believe them.
And that's really, that's one of the best things about setting those boundaries is it exposes everyone's actual intentions with you. And you taking the time to set boundaries yourself and respond instead of react, and with your own relationships in your life, makes you a more intentional person. And it starts to prevent you from doing those things maybe to other people. And it's an incredibly valuable skill to have.
That's one of the really scary things for me about social media, because when I see creators online, I just assume that's who they are as people.
Yes.
And you probably understand the heart-shattering heartbreak of this is one of the reasons that I love you so much, because I can't tell you how many times I've just been devastated. Oh, this creator seems so nice. I can't wait to be their friend.
Yes.
And then I'm like,
100%. And I think I'm somebody, and I wonder if you relate to this. When I meet creators in person that are very young, I find that they maybe have been raised in a generation that they're actually more comfortable being vulnerable to a camera, to their phone, to the online social media world. I was raised that, if you told anybody anything about yourself on social media, you were going to get kidnapped. So I find I am so much more extroverted in person than I am on camera. It's very difficult for me to do that. And I find you are always pursuing your career and trying to be better. And advice I always get is, the Brittany Broski of it all. Be raw, be authentic, be this. Maybe sitting on the toilet and videoing it is not everyone's definition of vulnerable. And not knocking that, but when you are making more quote unquote vulnerable content, like you and I making these comedy videos that have truth in it, that we're trying to get a message across, when it's perceived as inauthentic or invulnerable, it makes you start to say to I've had days where I sit on the couch and I'm like, do I not even know how to be vulnerable? And you start to listen to that understanding of it. And then you meet these people that seem so quote unquote vulnerable in person, and they can't carry a conversation.
No. Or even so, I've noticed, and this is this is one of those things that in the moment I really took personally, and I had to learn that was not on me. That's not a me problem. I met a group of people that genuinely made fun of me because I don't have an online persona.
That's frightening.
They're like, you're yourself online? And I'm like, yeah. Like,
that to me is a compliment, because I think that's why people love you so much, is because you are exactly the same in person as you are online. And I met you, we hung out together for a day in my hotel room at BeautyCon or wherever the hell we were. And you are exactly the same. And I think I would so much rather broadcast a message to people that follow others on social media, or even when negotiating their own social media presence. Don't subscribe to presenting your life in any other way than it isn't, because it becomes very hollow very quickly.
Yes, and it's 2022. It's almost 2023.
Yes.
We are all aware about how social media in unrealistic expectations contributes to mental health issues.
Yes.
Why is that a cool thing to contribute to that?
Yes.
I don't get it.
I know.
I don't get it.
I want to ask you one last question, and that's the perfect segue. You shared getting diagnosed with ADHD. What was you, and I have ADHD as well, and I think there is so much stigma and difficulty around maybe identifying a problem and wanting to get help with it. So what was your maybe realization of something being wrong, and or not wrong, but something being off, as I always like to say, and seeking out, okay, what are we going to do about this?
Yeah. So, I went completely undiagnosed all throughout my childhood. I was labeled as chatty and a daydreamer and all the labels all throughout my life. And I just genuinely assumed, I guess these things wrong with me. I don't know. Yeah. And I remember throughout my childhood trying so hard to not slip into a daydream. And then I come to and I'm like, well, that didn't work. Dang it.
Yes.
And then it was only a few years ago, I was scrolling on TikTok, and it was one of those things that were like, does this sound like you? And it was all these things. I can't even remember everything that it was. I just remember every single thing that they talked about. I felt to my core. And it was like, you might have ADHD. You should probably go get looked at. So I literally called my doctor that day. And we chatted. Like, you probably should have been diagnosed a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I never got medication for it.
Okay.
And I need to. And this is something my husband and I have talked about a lot. Because, some of the go-to medications for ADHD are like Adderall and things like that. And just a few years ago, my mother-in-law passed of a heart attack. She was a third shift psych ward nurse. Bless her heart. She had a heart attack. She worked so hard, and it just gave out one day. And it hit my husband so hard. And my husband got very concerned for his brother, who also has ADHD and has been on Adderall. And one of the side effects for long term is heart disease. And he got very in his feelings about it with concern. And so I kind of made the decision at the time to wait.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then social media happened, and then it's just been a blink of an eye, and wow, it's almost 2023. But we talked about how this year, probably at the start of 2023, that I was going to finally go back and finally look at some medication options, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, well, I think that's the moral of it, is once you go there, don't be afraid to take time to figure out something that works for you.
Right.
Get the best person and advice from a doctor that works for you, that's going to take the time, that's going to check in and really have that empathy for you and let you do it at your own pace.
My best friend, Anna, and I, she's been one of my best friends since we were 3. But we both have kind of had a journey of finding doctors and medications that work well for us. And, one medication that works for one person doesn't work for another. And that's kind of something that, as we're in adulthood now, we're both 26 years old. It's time to, be adults.
Yeah.
But that's something that's really been the topic of a lot of our conversations for the last year, is really finding doctors and medications and treatments that work well for us and the things that we need at the time. And I think that's so important to also normalize that it's okay if you do need to take some kind of medication or see a doctor or go to therapy or something like that. Like, these aren't things anyone should feel ashamed of doing.
Yes.
It's something that, if that's what you need to really feel good in your skin and to really have a productive day, who cares what anyone else thinks? Do it. Because really, what does it matter if other people aren't giving you crap, but you feel miserable? Like, you don't want to feel miserable. No, absolutely not.
Yes.
And if anyone thinks it's weird that you're getting help, they're not the kinds of people that you need in your life. Like,
preach.
Absolutely not.
Who cares what anybody else thinks? Just do it. You're full of advice, and I'm obsessed with every minute of it. You are the epitome of a beautiful person. I love you so much. I am so grateful that you took the time to talk to me today. Can you just tell everybody where they can find you?
R. Rogers World or Rebecca Rogers on all of the different platforms like YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or Instagram. It's all there. It's just my face.
It's a good face, and you're going to want to follow that face. Thank you so much, my love. I will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching and listening to a brand new episode of Beautiful and Bothered. I'm your host, Johnny Ross. Make sure to subscribe to the official Beautiful and Bothered YouTube channel for weekly video episodes, as well as anywhere you get your podcasts. And if it's not too much trouble, go ahead and leave a little 5-star review. Tune in next week for a brand new episode. As always, I am so grateful that you choose to spend this time with me each week. Wherever you guys are, I hope you are happy, safe, and healthy. And remember, you are beautiful.